Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Today, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who is prosecuting Donald Trump and 18 other criminal under racketeering charges, announced her office is investigating threats against grand jurors who indicted the ex-president. NBC News reporters Blaine Alexander and Ryan Riley first reported yesterday that Trump supporters leaked the purported addresses of grand jurors online, along with their names, which did appear in the indictment. And this is just the latest example of threatening behavior by Trump supporters directed at the various people working to hold him accountable for the crimes he is accused of. We also learned yesterday that a Texas woman was arrested and charged with making threats towards Judge Tanya Chutkan, who is overseeing Donald Trump's federal January 6 trial. According to the criminal complaint, Abigail Jo Schrei left a threatening voicemail intended for Chutkan, where she refers to the judge with a racial slur and apparently said, quote, "If Trump doesn't get elected in 2024, we are coming to kill you, so tread lightly," before using another slur. She also targeted a Texas Democratic congresswoman and vocal Trump critic, saying, quote, "We want to kill Sheila Jackson Lee." Now, when police questioned Schrei, they showed up at her door to talk to her. She, quote, stated she had no plans to travel to Washington, D.C. or Houston to carry out anything she stated, adding that if Sheila Jackson Lee comes to Schrei's hometown, then we need to worry. Get that? This woman, visited by the FBI, threatened Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, again, to them, to law enforcement. Couldn't help herself. And we learned about all that in just the past 2 days. 2 days. Now, if we go back last week, there is, of course, the case of the armed Utah man who was killed by federal agents after he made very specific threats of violence against President Biden, as well as District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who he threatened to shoot. Bragg, of course, is the one prosecuting Trump in the Manhattan hush money case. I could spend the entire hour listing threats made by Trump supporters against the ex-president's perceived enemies. Fani Willis says she has been on the receiving end of racist threats as well, and we can all see what's happening here. I mean, threats happen in public life, and they're not contained to one part of the ideological spectrum. I want to be clear about that. But what's happening here is part of a larger story, part of a long history of menace and violence as a form of political power wielded by Donald Trump and the MAGA right. These are not just isolated incidents. This is coming from the top down. Donald Trump knows exactly what he's doing when he goes on social media and he shares a picture of Judge Chutkan with a post calling her an activist judge, accusing her of running election interference. Just today, Trump's campaign released this video attacking special counsel Jack Smith for subpoenaing access to his Twitter account.
How dare low-life prosecutor, deranged Jack Smith, that's right, he's deranged, break into my former Twitter account without informing me and indeed trying to completely hide this atrocity from me.
It's very obvious what Donald Trump is doing, right? What he's trying to cultivate, a sense of menace and the possibility of reprisal, retribution, violence from those diehard supporters. When he calls the prosecutors charging him deranged, when he accuses him of committing an atrocity. I mean, at the very least, and this is me bending over backwards to be charitable, let's say that Trump certainly appears to be unbothered when his supporters make good on the implicit requests in his inflammatory language. And I want to be really absolutely clear here, because I think a lot of this stuff gets memory hold, right, in the flow of the news. We're not talking about hypotheticals or thought experiments or abstractions. A few months ago, a deranged QAnon supporter bashed in the head of Nancy Pelosi's elderly husband with a hammer after breaking into her house and describing how he was there looking for the speaker who he wanted to torture in her own home. That man, after that break-in, was then excused and defended, outright lied about by nearly everyone on the political right, from Elon Musk to Donald Trump himself. In the run-up to the 2018 midterms, another thing that's been memory hold. Do you remember there was a guy with a Trump-themed van who mailed actual pipe bombs? They didn't go off, but they were real pipe bombs to prominent Trump critics in government and the media. There was also the as yet uncaught pipe bomber, another thing that's been memory hold. Remember that? The early hours of January 6th, who tried to, again, with actual bombs, blow up the DNC and the RNC the night before January 6th. Of course, there was January 6th itself, when Trump supporters made good on the promise of violent political force, storming the Capitol in an attempt to overthrow the U.S. government. Some insurrectionists even constructed a gallows. Some chanted they want to hang Mike Pence. Reportedly, Trump mused that might not be such a bad idea. Because this is who Donald Trump has always been, his obvious personal cowardice aside. He's a guy who thinks political violence is acceptable means to an end, a desirable one in some cases. Don't forget, he spent his entire first presidential campaign encouraging attendees at his rallies to assault protesters.
I got a little notice in case you see the security guys. We have wonderful security guys. They said, Mr. Trump, there may be somebody with tomatoes in the audience. So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise.
So when Trump posts to social media the picture of Judge Chutkan, when he posts videos like the one we played for you a moment ago, let's call it what it is. He is obviously fomenting violence against the judges and prosecutors. I mean, if something terrible happens, what are we going to conclude? Every warning sign is blinking bright red. And of course, yes, most Trump supporters, the vast majority are not violent. They're not going to do something violent. And even among those who make threats, you know, the Schrei woman, for example, I don't know, most probably are not serious. Again, the vast majority. But this is kind of a numbers game here. It's a big country. So some small percentage of them are. We know that to be true. Again, this is not an abstraction. The longer Trump keeps inciting and agitating, it's a roll of the dice each time. And the greater the odds, iteratively, are that that small group of people who could do something will do something. It only has to be a few. Donald Trump is utilizing that reality to increase the cost of prosecuting him, to increase the cost of crossing him, in the same way a mafia boss would. He has been explicit. He posted himself, quote, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." I am not a lawyer. I do not claim to know what counts as actionable speech in a legal sense. Furthermore, the First Amendment in the United States is broad for a reason, and as a journalist, I like it that way. Put that aside. Morally, though, we all know what's happening. And we all know who's culpable for what's already happened and what may be to come. Mark my words.